Coming up on today's show, why Erik Ten Hag needs a successful second half of the season.
Yeah, your neck is on the line, mate. It's like any other manager. You look at it, all the time. So you got Man United. Wayne Rooney had Birmingham, but hey, bye-bye Wayne. You know, you're only as good as your results.
Who's the player Gordon is talking about here?
I'd have just given him a free. You know, and they've done that. If they'd have done that, that would have been, okay, there's a free, there's a settlement, because they're spending money on loan players now going out, left, right and centre. So somewhere down, they've got to fix that bucket.
And how the game has changed. Gordon remembers how he was moved on against his will back in the 70s.
He said, Derby have made a bid for you. And the club, not Sexton, the club had accepted it. And I just went, and I looked absolutely, I went, I don't believe this. I just don't believe this. And I knew then that he'd planned to do that way before, which then told me that said, do all managers act this way?
Coming up, plenty of opinions and insight, including what it was like playing for the great Tommy Docherty.
Ball comes into me. I get this almighty whack at the back of my head, right, which put me out, right? I heard Tommy Cavanagh saying, but he turned around and said, Doc, he said, we've got a game tomorrow. You can't kill players. And the Doc had come and given me a forearm smash at the back of the neck. And I went down and I got up and everything else. And he just looked at me and I looked at him and I went,
Welcome to episode 3 of the Gordy and Gubbs Podcast. I'm John Gubber, and over in Seattle is Gordon Hill. Gordon, how are you, my friend?
I'm fine, thanks, John. I hear you're battering against the cold weather, but we get used to it here. We've still got a couple of inches of snow still going to be coming down, so wrap up.
I'm definitely wrapped up. I've got 3 layers on, as you can see. I know you like talking about the transfer window, Gordon, and we're in the transfer window now. So, as always, there's a lot of speculation, even more so now United have got new leadership incoming. But I do think it's clear Sir Jim and his Ineos team are going to take time to review what's happening at the football club. And my expectation is there probably won't be a lot of activity in this window. What are your thoughts, Gordon?
No, I totally agree with you. I've looked at the transfers and the PSG scenario and Mbappe come in and you're looking at these transfers and you're looking at the stupid money, 250 million. We've got to sort ourselves out on the field before we really start going into that market and just buying players for the sake of buying players. I think Ten Hag will be given the rest of the season to see what he can actually muster out of it. This transfer window wasn't a window that made United any money, so to speak, because of the fact that these players that they've got rid of, or they're not got rid of, but they're gone on loan. And a loan player will come back and it still cost the club money. So unless they're going in for somebody, they need funds to be able to buy. They might say, oh yeah, we've got all this money coming in from different various, businesses, but you still got to balance those books. It's like you're having a log jam at this moment. You've got players you want to get rid of and you want to sell. They're not going. The transfer window's opened up. Ten Hag is obviously looking at players he wants. He's obviously going into that marketplace, but you can't compete at the moment until you sort your own house out, until you sort your own what you want and what you don't want. And there's a lot of speculation about players coming and going. But this time of the year, John, is normally managers are looking for stopgaps to stop them from going further down the league. They're looking for players that they might want for next season, but I can only wish that because the clubs are not willing to let them go for underneath a certain price. Managers, I call it the manager's merry-go-round, because what they're doing is they're looking at players and they're looking at their budget, and we're looking at all different scenarios from different clubs, and managers saying, would he do it? Would he do it? I'll loan him. I'll loan him. We've loaned 3 players out. Will those players go in the summer? We don't know. Will he want them back? We don't know. So everything's left in Ten Hag's book, I think. So I think James, Sir Jim, has done his job, and he's come in and he said, right, okay, it looks positive on that side of it, but you've got to balance the books, because we can see the scenario happening like City have had. We don't want that, So, and that's another ball game. That's not our ball game. That's their ball game. I'm just looking at what we can do, and I don't think this transfer window is just going to lighten up any United. I don't think they're going to break the purse strings. They say this, they say that. Look homegrown if you're going to borrow somebody. I think Johnny Evans has done a smashing job coming in after being on the coaching side of it. All of a sudden starts to play. That's brilliant. That's great. That's Johnny Evans. But that's what you'll get from these players. Ten Hag needs to be looking at present day players and what his squad's going to do. And he's going to have to look at the future to what he's going to have to lay out the plans for the new board and the new directors. I mean, it's a new direction. I'm excited about it, because I want to see what St. James has got up his sleeve with the Ineos group.
I'm excited, but I think we've got to be patient, because I think almost before we start making signings, it's important that we get the recruitment structure right, because something that we talked about off camera after we had our last chat over Christmas, I had that evening with Nicky Butt, and he seemed to identify exactly what the problem was in my mind at Old Trafford in the recruitment. You've got some players who are Ten Hag players, some John Murtough players, Glazer players. We need a streamlined situation where the recruitment are all singing from the same hymn sheet. We know what players we want, we identify them, and we all agree, or the recruitment people all agree on who we're going to sign. And I was at the game on Sunday against Spurs. It was good that we scored a couple of goals. It was good to see Rasmus Højlund score again, but it was clear to me that we really need a more senior player for him to learn from, and to not shoulder all responsibility at 20 years old. So I think we've got to be a little bit patient. But for me, Rasmus Højlund needs somebody up front to play with, or to learn from, and we're going to have to be patient and probably wait until the summer before we get the big signings that we really want.
I totally agree with you, John. I mean, bless his heart, he's on his own up the front. He's certainly not getting the service. I mean, he got a smashing goal at the weekend, which was fabulous. That's going to boost his confidence. But you're looking at other players that he's not really going to learn from Rashford, because Rashford's trying to find his game. You're certainly not going to get delivery from Anthony. Garnacho's trying to find his feet and try to do something. So you've really got a mismatch, really, of players in a red shirt going out there with their own. It is really like their own agenda, and you've got Fernandes like complaining in the middle about everything, but he can't lead if they don't want to follow. He can't be a captain if they don't listen. And we're watching this. We're watching the back line get changed. We're hearing the turmoil that Wan-Bissaka's under. All these players, they need to be sorted out. I think, like I said earlier, we need to get the squad that he wants and make sure that squad is all singing from the same hymn sheet. Because at this moment, it's not. And every game, you go into it, so the Tottenham game. Well, the same old story comes up again. They can't put teams away. They cannot hold ground at Old Trafford. They give the opposition you give them an inch and they'll take a mile. There was plenty of times when I played and the Fergie's era and the Atkins, you wouldn't get points at Old Trafford, John. You would never get points at Old Trafford. Even if you was having a bad game, you wouldn't get points from us. We'd managed to scrape something. If we got beat, that was because it was a one-off. But when I look at teams going now to Old Trafford, they're going with a smile on their face. They're going with a chance to be able to grab it. Do we know what's going out there? Do we know what players are coming in? And the fact is that he's concentrating. I don't know, John, what squad and what team he's picking from week to week. And the first thing you learn as a player is stability. You have to have stability in knowing who you're playing with and who you can trust. And when you go out there knowing who's got your back, they look as though they're playing as individuals and nobody's got their backs. They talk about it, yeah, but talk is cheap, John. Talk is very cheap. Ten Hag comes out, well, we're doing this and we're doing that. 1 minute he's got a favourite and the next minute he hasn't, and it's going through. And every manager has his favourite players. Pros don't have to tell you that when they're in there because they can see it. They can see where it's all going to. So you adjust your game accordingly. But what you actually do is you make a statement that, hey, Gaffer, he's not pulling his weight. And I think there's so many fingers being pointed, and with the turmoil that was at the back with the now hopefully sorted out club ownership, so to speak, we can get that and put that on the burner because they've got their hands on that. Now Ten Hag can concentrate on getting the second half of this season and going for points. Not going, well, we've got a game in 2 weeks against such and such. Your most important game in football is your next game. Your last game. You're only as good as your last game. And that's exactly what they've got to start doing. Now, yes, all the transfer windows are being thrown open and, oh yeah, this and this. No, get your own house in order first. And I think St. James has got to do that in the reading order that I've just said.
You call him St. James, I call him Big Jim because he's very tall, isn't he? But I think there was very, very much a sense of optimism at Manchester United Football Club. I was there, I spent a bit of time there on Monday, and inside the football club, people are very positive. They feel a bit of energy, a bit of direction because they've got a guy who's going to be running the football club and his people who are actually here. They're not over in America running it remotely. And the one thing I think is frustrating for the fans, though, apart from we are optimistic, but I feel the frustration is we haven't got an identity. You watch our football team, you don't know from week to week what we are, who we are. And I feel that there is going to be a review period for all the players and even for the manager. And even though I like the manager, I think he very much have supported the manager from day one, but I feel like his job is very much on the line, so to speak, because everybody's being reviewed. So I feel we're the second half of the season, even though we've only got the FA Cup to play for and top 4 if we can get there, or top 5 if that counts this year, because we might get an extra place. It's very much a case of auditioning almost for next season. But how important do you think it is that we actually establish a style of play at Manchester United?
I think it's number one priority. I mean, you've got, as I call him, St. Jim, Big Jim, as you call him. He's made his statement. He's come out with what he wants, what the club is going for, which is great, which we didn't have before. I'd look at it now. I feel for all the supporters because they want to see good football and they want to see what United was and is and can produce again. And unfortunately, with all this crap that's been happening, it hasn't happened. But now you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. You've got the supporters now being more optimistic and saying, well, okay, fine. You've got Ten Hag saying, well, at least I now understand that, yeah, your neck is on the line, mate. It's like any other manager. You look at it, I mean, all the time. So you got Man United. Wayne Rooney had Birmingham, but hey, bye-bye Wayne. You're only as good as your results. And it's not a business where you go into as we used to say, if a chairman backs you, look for another job. And that's something that has always been part of football. Whether you're up-to-date manager and you're somebody that was a successful. We've seen great managers come and go because of results. And we've just seen in the last couple of days that Mourinho, you're not that special. You're only as good as how that club is producing results. And everybody now is looking at United and saying, well, okay, yeah, you got the higher stuff out the way, the CEOs and all this. Now let's see what you can put out on the field. You're looking at players now that have got to stand up and be counted because, like you said, and like I've said, the second half of this season, John, is going to be very important on where the club goes to in the summer and who they look at, who they shift, because at the moment, you don't know who's coming and who's going. Martial's still sitting there. Should have been gone ages ago. I'd have just given him a free. And they've done that. If they'd have done that, that would have been, okay, there's a free, there's a settlement, because they're spending money on loan players now going out left, right and centre. So somewhere down there, they've got to fix that bucket, and I think that on their bucket list is making sure they get consolidation on the field and make sure they get a regular squad. But I'm still baffled, John, and as a footballer, as a former footballer, I still wonder where he's going to get that spark from. I don't see the spark. I don't see anybody lighting it up, so to speak, because they're all trying to establish themselves as individuals, and it doesn't look and it doesn't go in the team concept. And with the transfers that I mentioned, every day in the media, John, we're seeing this player's like United in for this player, United in for this player. We know that if Bournemouth go in for a player, it costs 10 million. If Man United go in for the same player, it's 50 million. And now you'll be quoted 250 million for two other players. So, John, it's becoming the price tag for players is now people are going, wow, they really want that much money for a player? And now its reality is that clubs are willing to spend that type of money on players that people say they're proven, yes, in other leagues, but not in our league. And we've seen players come and go. And to me, I still feel that the business side of it is getting sorted, but the football side of it, to me, John, is still a maze. It's still something, because you don't know who's going to play. And I certainly don't know who's going to play. And then when he puts his team sheet out, we wonder, why didn't he play him or why didn't he play him? Because we don't know what's going out from game to game. And as a player, I wanted to know if I was playing or not playing. That was one of the reasons with Sexton. Sexton couldn't get me. I was picked on a Friday to play against Queen's Park Rangers. He phoned me up and said to me, "You're going with reserves." I then I got a call and said, "No, you're going to be with the first team tomorrow against QPR." Then he said to me, again, 3 or 4 times, you're going to the reserves. In the end, I went to the reserve with the reserves to Preston, and Jim Curry at half time turned round and said to me, "Gordon, I've got to pull you off." And I said, "What's that for, Jim?" He said, "Derby have made a bid for you, and the club, not Sexton, the club had accepted it." And I just went, and I looked absolutely, I went, I don't believe this. I just don't believe this. And I knew then that he'd planned to do that way before, which then told me that said, do all managers act this way? And so I look at it from years down, and I don't trust managers. And I've become a manager, and what I try to do is try to tell the truth to a player. But that's really and that's how I was sold. Did I want to leave, John? No, not in a million years. I was leading goal scorer. I'd have been quite happy. But when a coach comes up and says, you're playing, you're not playing, you're playing, you're not playing, your mind's not there. You get, where am I going? What am I doing? And then at Deepdale, that Jim Curry says to me, oh, by the way, Gordon, he said, yeah, come off. Half time. He says, they don't want you to be injured. And that to me, John, just showed me. So I look at it now and I think that's a bigger scenario for Ten Hag at this moment in time. He doesn't know who he's going to play, doesn't know who's on form, and he's going in there and he's playing blind on certain players, and then he's asking other players to turn it on after them not being involved.
Seems to me there's a big difference, Gordon, because the players now are so powerful. I mean, it sounded like in those days you really didn't have that much say in whether or not you stayed or went and left the football club. How important is it, you think, to get the business side of it sorted out? Because it's not just down to the coach, Erik Ten Hag, finding a style of play and getting the players he wants. He's got to be able to move on the players he doesn't want. So it's obviously we don't think he wants Sancho. So how important do you think it is that the business people get the top money for Sancho? Or do you think there's a possibility he might end up coming back? Or do you think he's clinging to that possibility because he might think Erik Ten Hag won't be here in the summer?
You've just thrown out 4 scenarios there, John. Will he be there? Is he staying? Is he being sold? Is he coming back to play? This is something that I think that the 25% St. James, as I call him, Sir James, Sir Jim, Big Jim, whatever you want to call him, that's something, John, that he's got to sort out. That is something that he's going to have to sort out, and that it's in the right hands. It's in the right hands with the money people, and that's absolutely fantastic. So now he'll be able to sit down and say, okay, fine, this guy's on such and such, such and such. Now he can tell Erik Ten Hag, get on with your job and give me a successful team. Because that's the bottom line of it is, John, if I'm having a talk with you and you're hiring me to do one thing and bring the club back into winning ways. That's exactly what Big Jim wants. He wants you to take control. That's what he's paying that money for. But Big Jim's also got to contest with these players that are earning 200-350 and couldn't care less. They don't play for that shirt, which is frustrating me. I look at it on a weekend. I see sometimes a green and white shirt come out there. Sometimes I see a red shirt come out. Sometimes I see a blue one come. I look at it and go, the identity of what we are goes out the window a bit, because I'm looking at a team, that not being rotten look like a tube of toothpaste. But I look at it, but I like it when I look at it and I go, this is United. This is United. They're out there. And like you said earlier, John, they have become too powerful to satisfy some managers. I know back in my day that players could get rid of a manager. It was a very, very, very minute. But I've been in situations, I've been in clubs where all of a sudden, like 3, 4, 5, it's a scenario that you're in, and the player power. And one situation was when there was a couple of players went in at QPR to see the manager Jim Gregory to get Tommy Dock sacked because of what he was spending too much on his expenses. And they walked into the office and they had a player, with the captain with them. I'm not going to name names, but it was, and Jim Gregory just looked at them with a cigar and just laughed. And they said, you've sacked him over expenses. And he said, it's not the expenses. He said, I have more in my pocket than the expenses that he's ever. He said, it's the principle. So you're going to get these scenarios, but in today's game, it's wow, 200, 350,000 pound a week to produce something, and you don't produce it. Hey Jim, you got to step in now. Ten Hag can't step in on this. You've got to step in, and your power people and your money people have got to sort it out so they either put up or shut up, and then you get rid of them.
You talked quite eloquently earlier about how you were squeezed out by Dave Sexton. You also mentioned Tommy Docherty. So I think fans are really fascinated the relationship Tommy Docherty had with the players. I mean, what was it like playing with Tommy Docherty, and how good was he at spotting who a good player was?
Oh, being a very, very hard, very, very tough Scotsman that took no prisoners. Even in training, there was one Friday morning training session where we have a five-a-side on the field before a game. We don't go to the cliff. We went to the ground, and we're having a five-a-side, which we normally do, right in the corner, smashing, playing. Ball comes into me. I get this almighty whack at the back of my head, right, which put me out, right? I heard Tommy Kavanagh saying, but he turned around and said, Doc, he said, we've got a game tomorrow. You can't kill players. And the Doc had come and given me a forearm smash at the back of the neck. And I went down and I got up and everything else. And he just looked at me. And I looked at him, and I went, and you're retired, and you're a man. And Cav said, and he come up to me, he said, oh, sorry, son, sorry. And I went, and you take it that bite and that fight is still inside you, and still inside him as a winner. As a winner, it's still there. And I think you'd put him in the same category as Shankly, Robson, Reevy, Clough, Docherty. These are people that you would want to play for. These are managers that you wanted to play for. And then all of a sudden, the games you did play in against them, they were on the field as well, so to speak. They were, with on the field, and you could feel it. And the supporters could feel it, when you play against Leeds and you go to Leeds. I mean, the bus journey over, it was Ashley Grimes, who just signed from us from Ireland, and it was freezing down the Leeds High Street. And I forget what the result was. And his initiation was he had to sing Danny Boy, coming from Ireland. And he said no. He says, I can't sing. He says, I'm not going to sing. And he had a pair of flip-flops on and just his club jacket. And the doc said, if you don't sing, I'll stop the bus and put you off in the middle of Leeds High Street. And guess what? He stopped the bus when he wouldn't sing, put him in the high street, told Bob, our driver, to drive on. He drove, and with Ashley coming up the side, I'll sing. Back on the bus, but back to Manchester. So you had situations that were funny, but it was like you knew you had to perform. You knew you had the supporters, the fans. When we beat Derby at Hillsborough, they got on the fans at the end of it tried to get onto a car to look inside the coach at us because we'd just beaten Derby, and all of a sudden, like the car was a BMW, a big BMW, and the supporters couldn't care because they just wanted to get at you and just go, and clap you, right? Well, they didn't realise there was about 8 people on this BMW, and it started to collapse, and suspension went, and it collapsed, and we could see, and the poor owner was standing there, and it was like, Bob, get us out of here a bit quick, and that was the football. That was the fans, the supporters. We played at the final with my mum went there and my dad, and she got off the bus and someone said, "That's Gordon Hill's mum." And they started to go on their knees and bow down, and she was so embarrassed because, she was upset. She would, what, they get up, get up, get up, So that was the type of spirit that you played with. You played with it on the field. You went out. Yeah, you said hello to the opposition. You knew the opposition, but when you stepped over that line, John, you took no prisoners. And I think the opposition knew it as well. And so it was quite funny because when you'd meet after with an England game, when you met an England game, you played with these guys. Liverpool players, the Chelsea players, So you'd have a chin wag, and it was nice because you might be playing against them at the weekend because don't forget in them days you only played an international midweek, then had to be back at your club the next day, not this 2-week vacation now. So the spirit has changed. Yes, the game has changed. I'm not arguing with the game, but the principles are still the same. What you put in, you'll get out. If you don't put anything in, you don't get nothing out. And I look at it now and I watch the games and I scratch my head, really, John. I scratch my head and I just go, right, Jim, you've now got to sort that other side, the wages, and bring these people back down to earth. Make them come to the club to want to come to the club, not because they're going to get the most money.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, what I really miss about the old days is there was more of a connection between the fans, the players, the manager. We all seem to be in it together. Whereas nowadays you've got these superstar footballers that get so much money, it's very much harder for the manager to control and motivate them. But what I like about Sir Jim, he seems to be going back to basics. He's connecting with the people at the football club. He's connecting with the fans, and he wants to make it a little bit more personal. I think that could be quite a very good way to go down. So how hard do you think it's going to be to find the right players who are motivated, who really want to fight for the shirt, to fight for Manchester United, to fight for the club? And it's not just about the money, because I think too many players these days get sidetracked by all the commercial activities, becoming a superstar, a celebrity, their social media presences, whatever they're doing for their sponsors. At the end of the day, it's all about winning the game of football. And we seem to forget about that sometimes. That's when I hear you speak, that's what I think we're really missing today from the current players.
I could not agree more with you. I look at it and I go, wow, I used to live in Bollington, and I had a house there, and I used to play on a Sunday morning or after a game. I always remember we won the game at Newcastle, at Old Trafford, and I scored 3 or 4 that night. And they gave me the match ball. And I went home and the kids were playing in a little circle where I lived in the cul-de-sac. And they were playing out there and they never had a ball. So I took that ball out that I got for scoring the hat-trick and we played football with it in the street on the concrete. And I played with the kids. And I tell you what, and it was like, and they said, well, can we have it? I said, yeah, no problem. I said, it'll be in the garage, that now the electric gates and can't do this and can't do that. You're just a normal person. You just play football. The bottom line is you put the ball in the back of the net more times than the opposition and you won the game. Nowadays it's like, well, okay, fine. I've got 6 cars now. Big deal. You can only drive one.
I can imagine if you bring the match ball out nowadays, people will be thinking, how much can they get on eBay if they sell it, and how much are going to be worth in the future? But for you just saw it as a football, and that's We've lost that kind of essence of the game of football, I feel.
I mean, I was one game. I was at home, and there were about 4 or 5 supporters had taken the train out, and they were standing on the corner of my street, and they were waiting for me, and I was and I was going, waiting for me for what, And then I went outside. I said, and they got the red and white, which is fabulous, the scarves and everything else, and I went, what are you doing? And they said, oh, we wanted to come and talk to you. I said, well, you'd come out from Manchester on the train, and it was cold. And they went, yeah. And I went, oh. So they said, will you sign? I went, why didn't you wait till I come to the cliff? I would have done it there for you, no problem. Oh, well, we saw your daughter as well, and she's and I went, well, there she is, look. So, I got talking to them. I eventually ended up driving them back to the station. They'd walk from the station into Bollington to come and see me. And I just went, wow. And I always remember that, because then I took them back to the station and they went, oh, we've been in your car. I said, it's a car. It's a car. It's cold out there. And they went back. And then I saw them at the cliff, because there'd be regulars coming to the cliff. And they said, thank you. I went, no, not at all. I said, there's not, people that, I used to go off the field, and there was 3 people in the disabled area that they used to wheel up the tunnel. And on the left-hand side, before you went straight into the changing rooms and down, there used to be the 3 of them. And I used to go in, and I used to go up to each one of them, give them a kiss on the head, each one of them. And a couple of them have passed on, but I can't tell you the effect of that, John. Out there, one of 11 of us, 12 of us, 13 of us producing it. And if you didn't wave at the Stretford end when they shouted at you, you got booed, and they had names for each player. And then I would turn my back deliberately sometimes just to get them going, and they'd boo it. I'd turn around and raise my hand, and then they would acknowledge, but sometimes you used to, get advice. I got advice from Mike Summerby. He was in the changing. He was in the tunnel. He came up to me and he said, "What studs do you use?" I went, "Well, I use leather studs. I change them every time. I love leather studs." So he said to me, "I'll make them more effective for you." So he says, "Because you get kicked a lot, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I know you get kicked, Gordon." He said, "Because I'm the same." So I said, "What's that?" He said, "Come in the boot room." Went in the boot room, undone the studs, right? Got the new leather studs with pliers. You don't need spanners, pliers, right? Put them in. And he said, "Watch." He got a file, and on the bottom there was a couple of little nails. And he filed them just a little bit, right? And he said, "Now, when you go out, referee will check your studs." He says, "After that," he says, "just walk on that concrete." He says, "And now if a defender has a crack at you, you've got a little bit to protect yourself." And I tell you what, that was valuable, because I did that regular clockwork, and it was big studs at the back, middle studs, small studs, and you could buy them in packets. You didn't have anything on them, and that was it, because I didn't wear shin guards, John. I didn't wear shin guards. You got me, but
Crikey.
That was it.
It was a contact sport in those days, and it's really changed a lot, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, but used to say, like, kick him in the 52nd row. Someone says, "Why?" Says, "Well, have you ever heard of anybody scoring from the 52nd row?" So you took that. When I played at Highbury, being a London boy, coming from London, I'd go back to take a corner because the field was very close. I go back and I lean back to get a run up, just about a 3-4 yard run up to put the ball in. And someone grabbed me on the shoulder and said, "You bloody traitor." I went, "Traitor?" And he said, "Yeah, you went up north." They had a go at me for going up to Manchester from the, but you didn't think nothing of it. It was just like, okay, fine, And those stories, John, were those stories at Everton. We beat Everton, I think 5 or 6, and I scored a few goals, and Terry Darricott was marking me. And I always remember it on the wing, and I was fleeced. I was going past him, and I come back to the halfway line when we scored, and because the Everton field is close to the actual grass, the supporters, this supporter on the side was going hammer and tong at me. You beep, 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 you beep, beep, you beep, beep. You know, Terry Darricott had had enough of this. And I'm standing there after we scored a goal. I'm standing there facing this way. And all of a sudden, he's giving me some verbal. So Terry Darricott turned to the guy. He said, "Will you beep, beep, shut up?" He said, upsetting him. He says, "I've got to try and catch him." And I laughed my head off, and we laughed together at it. And this it must have been his Saturday afternoon take, because he was there. And I tell you what, and I said, "That's what I like." I said, the camaraderie and the talking and the bits and pieces. I said, "Now, John, you're right. You don't get it." And I don't know. I really don't know. I know now, nah. You say something, you get done for it. You can't say nothing then. But in them days, yeah, you had people that could talk to you and bits and pieces. But that spurred you on. I'm surprised, because with a crowd that United get 70,000 now, why it doesn't spur those players on. Why those players don't want to play for it, even though they're getting the money. Why are they not producing it? Even if they do it for a couple of seasons, which I was lucky enough to do it for. I wanted to stay for the rest of my life. I was happy. I was scoring goals. I was playing with great players, fabulous players. I couldn't, If he decides you're gone, you're gone.
I think some of our modern players quite enjoy listening to some of your stories, Gordon. I don't think some of the stories would you get away with it today, but I know the fans love hearing these stories, and they really like when you said wow about some of those stories that you were saying. I mean, I say wow because the way that you relate to the fans is a wow. I mean, a good friend of mine was one of those disabled guys, Kevin, who passed away a few months ago. And
I know, yes.
He remembered very fondly those days. He always used to talk about them. And, you probably do realise, but these people, you make their life when you interact with these fans. And I think that's one of the things that we've lost with modern day players, because they're living behind walled gardens. They're with their security. Correct. And they're detached from the modern fans. I think that's one of the things that we really do miss, is the connection.
Yes.
With modern day players. I mean, sometimes fans do get to meet them when they wait outside Carrington, or they wait outside the dressing rooms at Old Trafford, but it's a very fleeting sort of interaction. It's not like the interactions that you used to have. And I'm sure fans really love hearing your stories, and I know you've got a lot more stories, so I think we should save some for next time.
Oh my gosh.
Go over there in Seattle. It's gone 11 o'clock.
I will.
And in the morning, I know you've got a busy day planned. So thanks for the time again, Gordon, and look forward to next time.
No, John, it's been absolutely great. And as I said, keep the faith and, keep supporting, guys, because I can see that it's turning a corner, and let's keep our fingers crossed results go the way we want it, and let's go back to what we was, a club that everybody loves.
Thanks, Gordon. Fingers crossed.
Pleasure. Touch wood. Touch wood.